For today is from the Vedas. It's on page 48 of this book, Universal Prayers, on the top of page 48, and the English translation is on page 49. Om Apyayanta mamangani Vapranaschakshushotram Athabalam Indriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam me astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. I pray to the Divine Lord that all aspects of my personality, including my body, mind, speech, the vital force Prana Shakti, may all of them increase and become stronger, and may all of them function in perfect harmony. This whole visible universe is nothing other than the ultimate reality, Brahman, described as Brahman in the Upanishads. May I never forget this truth. May I never reject this truth. May there be no rejection. Let me accept it as a starting hypothesis and proceed to realize the truth of this statement in this life to the best of my ability. As I am engaged in this effort to know the truth, experience my divine nature, may all the virtues described in the Upanishads come to me. May all the virtues such as truthfulness, strength, purity, straightforwardness, may all of those virtues come to me and reside in me. Om peace, may there be peace and joy in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, and may there be peace everywhere in nature. Let us start. Last time we were discussing the two verses 60-63 in the second chapter, where Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes the origin of desire, how desire originates in the mind and what happens thereafter. Desire arises because the root cause of desire is ignorance of our true nature as divine. Upanishad says we are that. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. Each one of us is that Brahman. But that knowledge we don't have right now. It is masked from us because of Maya. We are under the ignorance that we are the body and the mind. So when we are experiencing only the body and the mind, we see a variety of objects outside of us, sense objects. And the mind hankers to have contact with the sense objects. That is desire. I don't have this. I want to get it. If I get it, I'll be happier. It may be an object, it may be a person, it may be a property, it may be money, house, position, power, a child, whatever I don't have. If I have it, I'll be happier. A feeling of emptiness. I don't have something and I am not happy. That feeling of emptiness is what causes desire in the mind to acquire something which we don't have. The desire arises from two sources. One source is When we see some object outside, somebody or something outside, we want to have it. So the perception of external stimuli, outside objects, causes desire to arise in the mind. If I didn't see it, then I would not be thinking about it. If I saw something, I saw somebody eating something, so I have the desire to eat that same thing. If I had not seen that, maybe I would not have thought about it. So that is one source. Outside sense objects, external stimuli, they cause desire to arise in the mind. One. But that is not all. Even if there is nothing else outside, even if I don't see anything outside, I am simply sitting alone in my room. There's nothing there. Still desire comes to my mind. From where? From the stored earlier impressions. So many innumerable impressions have been stored, samskaras have been stored in our subconscious mind, and they come to the surface. They become vritti. Vritti means the present thought in the mind. The thought present in the mind is called vritti. Samskara becomes vritti, comes to the surface, even in the absence of anything outside to stimulate it. So that vritti, desire, comes from the earlier impressions. So one way or the other, desire comes in the mind. So that is explained in the verse number 62 and 63. So there Sri Krishna says, verse number 62, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate. Puman means a human being. Dhyayata means one who is thinking, jhana, thinking about Vishaya, sense object. When a person thinks about a sense object, then what happens? Sangasteshu Pajayate. Teshu means Vishayeshu. In those sense objects, Sangha Upajayate. Sangha means attachment. Attachment means a strong desire. I see somebody wearing a Rolex watch, and the moment I see somebody wearing a Rolex watch, I also have the desire to have a Rolex watch like he is having. So that is how a desire arises, attachment. Sangha teshu upajayate. Teshu means Vishayeshu. So when I see something, I'm attracted to that one. That attraction turns into desire. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. From attraction, strong pull towards that object turns into kama, desire. Once kama comes, then we are in a difficult situation. Because if you fulfill the desire, supposing you buy a Rolex watch and wear it, then that is not the end of the transaction. Then some other desire will come. Or desire will come to buy another watch, or desire will come to buy a bigger watch, or some other desire will come. If you fulfill the desire, it will not go away. It will come back, or new desire will come. And this goes on, desire fulfillment, until a time comes when no more desire can be fulfilled for whatever reason. If the desire cannot be fulfilled, that turns into bitterness, frustration, anger. Krodha, kama, krodho vijayate. Krodha means anger. Kama, when not fulfilled, becomes anger. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger, when a person becomes angry, that person loses the ability to think clearly. Sammoha means delusion, inability to think clearly. When a person is in fit of rage, anger, that person does not know where he is, what he should be doing, what he should not be saying, what is right, what is wrong. All those ability to think all those things clearly will be lost. That person becomes deluded, becomes temporarily insane. It causes insanity. People behave like mad people when they are angry. Ordinarily, when they are not angry, they will be all right. But when they become angry, they just don't know what they are doing. They are doing things and say things which will cause damage, and then they will later regret when the anger goes. Krodhat bhakti sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha. When the delusion comes, if Smriti Brahma means loss of memory. We don't remember where we are, whether in the workplace where we should behave properly, or in the family or somewhere else. We don't remember what I should be saying, what I should not be saying. We don't remember. Who am I? All those things will be forgotten. All the instructions we read in the book about not becoming angry will be forgotten. All the Gita study we did will be forgotten. When you are angry, nothing will remain. Smriti Brahmaha, Smriti Brahmshat Buddhi Nasho. When memory is lost, intellectual power is hampered. It cannot, intellect cannot be clearly directing the person. Buddhi Nasha means ability to think clearly will be lost. Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. When a person loses his ability to think clearly, that person does all kinds of things which should not be done or says things and then ends up in deep trouble. So that is why we should control the desire before it arises in the mind. Once it arises, it will be difficult. We get into a downward spiral, and with increasing momentum, we go down the spiral. And once we get into the spiral, it's difficult to retrace our steps and come back. So the trick is not to become angry. How not to become angry? That is by practicing contentment and making the mind free from anger, jealousy, etc. The six enemies. How to do that one? Prayer, meditation, japa, repetition of God's name, vichara, inquiry, and chanting hymns describing the glories of God. All those things, holy company, prayer in solitude, study of scriptures, all these things have to be done as a part of our daily spiritual practice as much as possible, so that the chance of becoming angry will become less and less. Mind will become calm and pure. How does the mind become calm and pure is going to be described in the next few verses um, in the second chapter of the Gita. How does the mind become completely pure and remain always established in God consciousness? How to reach that goal? That will be described in the next few verses in the second chapter. We are only a few verses away remaining in the second chapter. We'll try to finish it, second chapter, if possible, today. So let us go to verse number 64. 63, 62 we finished. 64 describes how a person with steady wisdom achieves peace of mind, prasada. So verse number 64. Ragadvesha viyuktaistu विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयान् इन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा prasadamadi. The translation here is approaching objects with senses free from attachment and aversion and controlled by the mind. The man who has mastered his mind wins serenity, calmness. That means, let us go to the shloka, rearrange the words, it will be easy to understand. Raga dvesha viyukta is raga dvesha viyukta. Raga means attachment, dvesha means aversion, hatred. Viyukta means free from raga dvesha. Raga dvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi, the sense organs. Sense organs which are free from raga dvesha, indriyaihi, by the sense organs which are free from raga dvesha. Vishayan charan, vishaya means sense object. We cannot remain without contact with sense objects, even for a moment. The body itself is a sense object. So we have to have contact with sense objects. Then we have to discriminate which sense objects should I contact, which I should not. When, for example, the television is on. Television shows so many different shows are there, entertainment and news, sports, politics, everything is there. Now, those are all sense objects. What we see, what we hear is they are sense objects. Now, the discriminating person must decide of so many, of 300-400 channels are there these days in television. Of these so many channels, so many shows in each channel, which one should I watch, or should I watch at all? Should I turn off the television and study the Gospel or Bhagavad Gita? That decision has to be made by a discriminating mind. If the mind is not discriminating, if there is no viveka, that person ends up seeing all kinds of things, putting all kinds of impure, unwanted thoughts into the mind. Mind becomes polluted. It's already polluted and becomes, we add to the pollution of the mind by watching all kinds of things that are shown in the television. That's one example. Any sense objects we should discriminate. Is this worthwhile for me to pursue, or should I stay away from it? That kind of discrimination is called viveka. Agadvesha, attachment and aversion, viyuktaihi, indriyaihi, sense organs which are free from ragadvesha, likes and dislikes. I should do what is good for me, not necessarily what I like. There may be something that I like, which may be good, then I am fortunate. If there is something that I don't like, which is good, then I have to keep aside my dislike and pursue what is good. If there is something that I like but it's not good, then I should stay away from it. I may like it, but it's not good for me, so I should stay away from it. That kind of discrimination must be cultivated in our mind. Ragadvesha Viktai Indriya Vishayancharan, dealing with sense objects. You have to deal with sense objects. Food, for example, what food to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, when to eat. All those are decisions to be made by discriminating, by cultivating a sense of, strong sense of what is wrong. Viveka is called Viveka. Sense of what is right, what is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done, what should be said, what should not be said. That kind of discrimination, Viveka, has to be cultivated with effort. With that discriminating sense organs, Atma Vashahi, which are under the control of the mind. Atma here means the mind. Earlier we saw Atma has many meanings. Here, Indriyas should be controlled by the mind. Indriyas which are controlled by the mind, they must obey the mind. It should not be the other way. Some people let the mind control, some people let the sense organs control the mind. That is the wrong thing to do. The mind should control the sense organs, not the other way. Atmavashai indriyaihi, sense organs which are controlled by the mind. Yasmaishveda yatma prasadam adhigacchati. Such a person enjoys prasada. Prasada means not the prasada that is offered at the puja. This prasada here means serenity. Here Shankara says prasannata swasthya. Prasannata means serenity, calmness of the mind. Shama, it's also called shama. Mind has to become pure. How does the mind become pure? By staying away from unwanted sense objects and engaging with desirable sense objects, doing some things. Reading holy books, biographies of saintly people, chanting hymns in any language, describing glories of God. These are all ways to purify the mind and cultivate viveka. Following the teachings of our Guru, all of these should be done, and we should develop a strong sense of viveka. What is right, what is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done, when to do something, when not to do something, when to say something, when not to say something. All those things are to be cultivated. By doing all these things, what happens? Prasadam adhigacchati. A person enjoys peace of mind. Peace means that peace that is not disturbed by any disturbance. No matter what other people say, I remain peaceful. We should not be affected by what other people say and do. Some people praise us. Then we should not become too much elated and arrogant. I'm such a great person, like that. Some people blame us. Then we should not become dejected or angry and blame them back. No matter what other people say or do, I remain calm, irrespective of what other conditions exist. Whether it is hot or cold, whether I'm ill or well, whether I gain or loss, in all those conditions, by practicing equanimity, as we saw before in second chapter, verse 38, Sukhadukke same kritva, labha labho jaya jayu. Sukha dukkha, happiness comes, unhappiness comes. Pain comes, suffering comes. And good times also will come. Labha, alabha. Sometimes we gain, labha means profit. Alabha means loss. Sometimes we gain, sometimes we lose. Jaya, ajayo. Jaya means success. Ajaya means failure. Whether success comes or failure comes, under all these conditions, I remain calm, unaffected by all these things. If I let myself be affected by every small thing, then I will never have peace of mind. I should remain calm, thinking about the self within, no matter what happens in the outside world. That other people do whatever they want to do, say whatever they want to say about me. I'm not going to be affected by that one. Retain my calmness. That is what Swami Vivekananda said in the Song of Sannyasin. Many times I refer to that one. There one stanza says, heed then no more how body lives or goes, its task is done, let karma float it down, let one put garlands on, another kick this frame, say not. No praise or blame can be, where praise or praised and blame or blamed are one. Thus be thou calm, sannyasin bold, say, Om Tat Sat Om. Somebody praises us, somebody blames us. Sometimes I'm well, sometimes I'm sick. Sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen. No matter what happens, I remain calm. I retain my inner serenity. That sense of inner serenity is called prasada. If you once have that serenity, then we'll be always happy and content. Now we go to the next sloka, 65. Here in this sloka, Sri Krishna describes what happens when a person experiences such kind of peace. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. Here, Sri Krishna says, when a person enjoys that serenity of mind, then all sufferings will come to an end. The reason for that person whose mind is calm soon becomes steadfast. The reason here means buddhi. The mind of such a person who enjoys that inner serenity becomes steadfast. Steadfast means constantly associated with the divine self within, not roaming in the world outside. So let us see this sloka. Prasade means when that serenity is achieved, when that peace is achieved, sarva dukkhanam hani upachayate. Hani means loss or destruction. Of sarva dukkhanam, of all dukkha, of all suffering. All suffering will cease. Upachayate, hani upachayate. The all suffering will cease to exist. Sarva dukkha means we undergo three kinds of dukkha. In the ancient times, the sages thought about all aspects of human life. They were not only sitting under a tree meditating on God all the time, but they thought about every aspect of human life. No aspect was left unstudied. So one thing they studied, the ancient sages studied, was why suffering comes and from where it comes. What are the sources of suffering? So they discovered that suffering comes from three sources, three kinds of suffering. The first kind of suffering is the mistakes that we do. We ourselves do something wrong, and that comes back to us in the form of suffering. Wrong action, wrong speech, wrong thought. they cause pain. All actions bring a reaction. Every karma has to have a karma phala. If I do dushkarma, if I do bad karma, bad result will come. That is suffering. So most of the suffering is caused by one's own self. We ourselves cause suffering by doing something wrong, saying something wrong. That karma may have been done in a long, remote past. We may not remember. Sometimes there is a long gap between what I do and what happens as a result. Between karma and karma phala, karma and fruit of karma, sometimes there is not much gap. Sometimes there is a long gap. Sometimes the gap is so long that I do the karma, bad karma in this life, but I don't feel anything. I think I got away with it. Next time when I'm born, that catches up with me. This is true. Supposing we have some problem that we are going through now, and there is no reason why that problem should come to me. I have not done anything wrong to merit this suffering that I am going through. Why did it come to me? That question comes to me. The answer is no suffering comes except as I have done something to warrant it. Swami Vivekananda said, no suffering comes except as one has paved the way for it oneself. Unless I have done something wrong, no suffering will come. But suffering has come, I have not done anything wrong in this life. That's all I remember. But what about the previous life? In previous life, what I did, I don't remember. So something that I did wrong in the previous life is bearing fruit now. There's long gap between karma, karma, phala. This is true in nature. Some actions produce immediate result. For example, somebody is walking on the street and you just without any reason go and tell him you are a fool. Immediately he will slap you. If there is no gap, quickly you will get the result of your bad action. Supposing there is a hot plate to keep your hand without knowing it, immediately you will feel the heat. There is no gap between karma, karma, phala. But sometimes the karma, karma, phala gap is very long. It may be in the next birth. Just like the tree, some plants you plant, very short time you get the result. If you put some coriander seeds in your kitchen garden, then within 3 weeks you'll get the coriander leaves and you can use it for cooking. But if you plant a mango tree in 3 weeks, nothing happens. You have to wait for 5 years or more for the mango fruit to come. So karma is like that. So when we ourselves do something wrong and suffer because of our misdeed, this is called adhyatmika tapa. Tapa means heat, tapa means suffering. Adhyatmika tapa means problems that come to our life, suffering that comes to our life because of our own misdeeds done in the recent past or remote past. We do something wrong, we get the result. That is one kind of suffering. I am the cause of that one. I can't blame anybody for that. Second kind of suffering, we are discussing three kinds of suffering. Adhyatmika tapa, first one, caused by myself. Second kind of suffering is suffering that seems to come from other people, other sources, outside sources. Animals create problem for us. For example, in rural parts of India, agricultural communities, at night elephants come and trample and destroy the crop. Then it's not caused by anybody. It happens from comes from outside sources. Animals cause that one. Or you are driving on a highway and you are following all the rules of traffic. You are under the speed limit. Your car is in good condition. You are sober. You are driving carefully. Still, somebody else from traveling in another lane comes and hits you, loses control. Then that suffering comes not because of any mistake that you did, because of somebody else's mistake. These things happen. There's a root cause is myself, but the approximate cause, visible cause is somebody else or something else. That kind of suffering is called Adi Bhautika Tapa. Adi Bhauta means other beings, animals and plants, people, coming from outside sources, from other people, animals, plants, called Adi Bhautika Tapa. First kind of suffering is Adhyatmika Tapa, caused by myself. Second kind of suffering is adi bhautika tapa. Suffering seems to coming from outside sources, other people, animals. Then plants also. Supposing you park your park your car under a tree, and then at night a big storm comes and the tree falls on your car. The car is damaged. You didn't cause any problem, but the tree fell, and then problem happened. So this kind of suffering coming from outside sources is called adi bhautika tapa. Third kind of tapa is suffering caused by natural calamities. Nobody causes them. Hurricane, flood, too much water coming, and houses washed away, forest fires, so many tens of thousands of acres are burnt every year in forest fire. So many people lose their homes and everything. Forest fires, volcanic eruption, too little rain, drought, no water to drink, no water for the crops. All these natural calamities, lightning, etc., they also cause suffering. That kind of suffering which nobody causes. I didn't cause them. Other people didn't cause them. It happened in nature. So this kind of suffering is called Anadi Daivika Tapa. Daiva means superhuman, above. So nobody causes them. This kind of tapa suffering is called Adi Daivika Tapa. So three kinds of suffering. Sarva Dukkhanam, first line of 65. All these three kinds of suffering will not affect the person who enjoys peace of mind. Sarva Dukkhanam Hani Upajayate. Three kinds of suffering will be lost, will not accrue to the person who enjoys supreme peace. Prasade. Prasada means inner calmness, tranquility of the mind, that nothing disturbs. Undisturbable, unperturbable peace of mind. Our peace of mind ordinarily is very fragile. I'm peaceful right now, nobody is doing anything wrong, nothing is bothering me, I'm peaceful. But next moment something will go wrong and my peace will be lost. That is not true peace. Very temporary, conditional peace. But this peace that Sri Krishna is talking about is not conditional. Unconditionally, no matter what happens inside or outside, that person remains unconditionally calm and peaceful under all circumstances. Such a peace is our goal. When that comes, no problem affects us. Prasanna chetaso hyasu buddhi paryavatishthate. Prasanna chetasa means a person who has this kind of peace. A person who has this kind of unconditional peace also means quickly. Of such a person, very quickly, buddhi, the mind of such a person who has this kind of peace, paryavatishthate means becomes established in the self, in Atma. That person mind is always established in Atma. He becomes a Sthita Prajna. The definition of Sthita Prajna is a person whose mind is always fixed on the self. Sthita means fixed. Prajna means consciousness or awareness. A person whose awareness is constantly fixed on the self, not on the world outside. If you think of world outside, all kinds of disturbances will come to the mind. Good and bad will come. If you think about the Atman, stay established in the awareness of the self within, then you are perfectly peaceful. Such a person becomes a Sthita Prajna, enjoys that supreme peace, which is unperturbable. Unconditional peace will come to such a person. Now, for a person who does not do this kind of vichara thinking, only disturbance will come. That is explained in verse number 66. Just go to 66. Nasti buddhirayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. Very easy. Ayuktasya buddhi nasti. Ayukta means a person who does not concentrate. Yukta means one who has practiced yoga. One who has practiced any kind of yoga, bhakti yoga or karma yoga or whatever, if a person has not practiced it for a long time, does not come to not experiencing peace of mind, for such a person, ayuktasya na buddhi nasti, but person's mind is not stable. Mind is very fickle. and subject to disturbance even by the smallest kind of stimulus. Somebody is stressed just a little bit, something, then the person becomes very angry. It doesn't take much, short fuse, such a person. Nasti buddhi rayuktasya, a person who does not meditate on the self or on God, such a person has no peace of mind. Nasti buddhi. That's why yuktasya bhavana. Bhavana means desire for self-knowledge. This is called bhavana. For such a person, ayuktasya bhavana. Ayukta means a person who does not meditate, does not have peace of mind, does not have concentration of mind. For such a person, there is no desire to know God or to know the self, the bhavana. Nacha bhavayata shanti. Person does not have desire to know the self or to know God, na shanti. There is no peace of mind. Ashantasya kutas sukham. For a person who does not have peace, ashanta means a person who does not have peace. For such a person who does not have peace of mind, kutas sukham, from where happiness will come? You always be unhappy. So we should do the opposite. We should practice concentration, meditation on the self. Or if meditation not possible, japa is the next best thing. Holy Mother asked somebody who asked Holy Mother, I cannot meditate, which is most people cannot meditate. But she said, if you do japa, repetition of your God's name or mantra, that is same as meditation. Japa means repetition of name or mantra, one after another. In between two repetitions, there is a small gap of time. But if the repetition of mantra is carried on with devotion for a long time, that gap will become less and the mind, without any gap, will stay fixed on the chosen ideal about whom you are meditating or whose japa you are doing. So japa itself will become meditation over a period of time. In the beginning, every repetition of name has to be done with effort and concentration. Mind goes here and there. But if we persist in our practice, japa becomes more, can be done with more concentration, and that becomes itself meditation. So start with japa. For such a person who does this kind of spiritual practice, peace of mind will come. And peace of mind will come, that person will not be affected by what other people do or say, what happens, sukha or dukkha, enjoys unconditional peace of mind. That is verse number 66. 66. Now we go to 67. Indriyanam vicharatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam hasi. Indriyanam vicharatam. Charata means moving, roving among sense objects of Indriya. Indriya means sense objects. Indriyanam charatam yanmano anuvidiyate. Manaha means the mind. Anuvidiyate means mind follows the roving sense object, sense organ. Let me understand. Let us understand the first line. Sense organs are there. Eyes, for example. Instead of keeping the eyes focused on itself within, I look at everything available outside. Just like going to a shopping mall and watching everything, what the people are doing, what they are buying, what they are wearing, what they are eating in the food court. Everything I am watching. You are such a person who allows the sense organs to watch everything that is happening. The mind allows the sense organs to watch. The mind should say, I don't look at all those things. Just mind your own business and go back and go to the puja. Mind should say that to the eye. Mind does not say. Mind allows the eye to roam in the sense organs. A person's mind who follows the sense organs, yanmanaha indriyanam charatam indriyanam anuvidiyate. Anuvidiyate means following the mind, following the sense organs. Instead of the opposite must happen. Sense organs must be controlled by the mind, but the sense organs control the mind in such a person's case. A person who cannot control the sense organs, whose mind follows the sense organs, allows them to do whatever they want to do, instead of stopping them from doing something wrong. Such a person's mind, what happens? Tadasya harati prajnam. Prajna means awareness of what is right, what is wrong. In the commentary, Shankaracharya says, Prajna means Atmanatma Viveka. What is Atman, what is not Atman, and what is the self, what is not the self, what is right, what is wrong. That discriminating power will be lost by the mind, which follows the sense organs. If I let my mind follow the sense organs, whatever the sense organs do, I will follow along with them. I don't check them or stop them when they're doing something wrong. If I allow my mind to follow sense organs and enjoy the roving sense organs, then my mind will not be able to have peace of mind. I will not be able to discriminate between right. I don't know what's right, what is wrong. That aviveka will come. Lack of discrimination will come. Tadasya rati prajnam. I gives an example. How Vayur Navamivam Hasi. Vayu means wind. Nava means a boat. Ambasi means in water. Ambas means water. Supposing there is a boat going in a lake or reservoir, and a strong wind comes, Vayu comes, and the boat is unable to remain stable. The strong wind turns the boat and makes it go in different direction, not where the boat wants to go, because wind is so strong. In the same way, a person's mind cannot control the sense organs. The sense organs go wherever they want to go. Such a person cannot have peace of mind. The mind that conforms to the roving senses robs one of perception, just as the wind which sweeps the boat off its course at sea. So we should not allow that to happen. We should make the mind control the sense organs, not the other way. Mind should tell the eye, don't look at those things, look at this thing instead. The mind should tell the sense organ, don't read all those kinds of bad things, read good things. Don't watch all those kinds of things, watch good kind of things. That ability to guide the sense organs must be, mind must have that ability. Otherwise, person's mind will go everywhere in unwanted directions and there is no peace of mind. Verse number 68. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah indriyani indriyasyarthe arthebhyastasya prajna pratishtita. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita. Therefore, O Arjuna, his wisdom is stable, whose senses have been withdrawn on all sides from their respective sense objects. Yasya sarvashaha indriyani nigrihitani. Yasya indriyani, one whose sense organs are withdrawn, nigrihitani, so from all sense objects, sarvashaha. Tasya prajna pratishtita. Indriyarthebhya. Indriyartha means sense objects. A person whose sense organs and mind have been withdrawn from sense objects and allowed them to focus on the self within, such a person's such a person becomes a sita prajna. Such a prajna pratishtita. Such a person's mind awareness is firmly fixed on the self within. So here we have to understand this way. If we let the mind go and think about sense objects, that's what we'll be thinking about. If you let the mind think about the self, then mind becomes settled on the self. So which way we want to go, that we have to decide. Here we can remember verse number 58. There was an example Sri Krishna gave. It is 58. Yada sammarate chayam. Yes, 58. There Sri Krishna gives an example. Kurma means a tortoise. Just like a tortoise withdraws its limbs when it senses dangers and keeps the limbs sheltered under the shell. The shell is very strong. In the same way, when a discriminating person sees a sense object which is not desirable, I see something which is not good for me, or hear something or see some food to eat which is not good for me, then I should withdraw my sense organs, just like a tortoise does, and keep it under the shell of the self. In the same way, a person whose sense organs are withdrawn from unwanted sense objects, yasya indriyani sarvasha nigrihitani indriyarthebhya, from sense objects, tasya prajna pratishtita, the mind of such a person becomes established in self. He becomes a Sita Prajna. So it is very easy to understand, not much complication there in this verse. Now we go to verse number 69. Yanisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato muni. Yanisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato muni. The literal meaning can be misleading. The literal meaning is that which is night to all beings. Nisha means night. Sarvabhutanam nisha. Something that is night to all the beings. So, tasyam, in that, samyami jagarti. Samyami means a person of controlled mind. Samyami means control. Samyami means a person who controls the mind. For such a person, that is day, he remains awake. Yasyam jagrati bhutani. Those things to which all beings are awake, jagrati, they are awake. Sanisha pashyato muni. That is night for the muni who is seeing. Pashyato means seeing muni. The meaning is, if it is something else, those people for whom it is night, and for Jnani it is day. When some people who are working at night, the emergency workers who have to do night shift in hospitals and transportation and power supply company, they have to work. Everybody else is sleeping. Those who are awake when everybody is sleeping, they all become Atmajnanis, according to, if you take it a little not like that. It means those objects, thoughts, and actions which ordinary people do not pursue. It is night to them and they don't pursue those things. Those actions, objects, and thoughts, the Jnani pursues. For example, ordinary people don't have time to study scriptures. They don't have time to think about God. They are so busy in their worldly life. Work occupies much of the day. Then evening they come home, dinner, entertainment, television, and then they go to bed. The next again same thing. You get up early in the morning, get breakfast, and go to work. Where is the time? They're so busy with worldly life. So they are fully awake to the world. What happens in the world, they know. But Jnani turns his attention away from all those things. He's not interested in what's happening in the world. So that which is day to them is night to the Jnani. Night means he does not take delight in what other ordinary people do. Ordinary people seek enjoyment. Jnani does not seek enjoyment. He seeks enlightenment. That which is night to the ordinary people, Sarva Bhutanam Nisha. They don't pay any attention to spiritual pursuits, study of scriptures, or meditation. Those things are night because they don't engage in them. In those things, Samyami Jagrati, he pursues those things. Interests are opposite, 180 degrees, different interests. What interests the common person is of no interest to the Jnani. What is of interest to the Jnani is of no interest to the common person. That is what this verse means. Okay, we have 3 more verses. Let us do verse number 70. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat तद्वत्कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी आपूर्यमाणम् अचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत्कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. Samudram means sea or ocean. Apurnimanganam samudram. Apa means water. Pravishanti means enter. So many rivers. Apa means so many water or rivers. Samudram pravishanti. They enter the ocean. That samudra itself is achala pratishtham. It remains unmoved. No matter how many rivers come and join the ocean, ocean does not exceed its boundary. It remains calm, absorbs everything and remains calm, does not react. Apuryamanam means being filled with the waters of all the rivers. Achala pratishtham, unmoving and stable. Samudram, such a sea which remains stable, unmoving, unaffected by all the rivers emptying their waters into it, into the ocean. Tadvat, in the same way, yam sarve kama pravishanti. A person who so many desires enter into the person's mind from all sides, from the stored samskaras and from the outside world. A person whose mind suffers onslaught from all kinds of desires from every direction, sashantimapnoti nakama kami. A person remains calm like the ocean. No matter how many desires come, that person remains peaceful, remains unaffected by the onslaught of desires coming from every direction. He may live in the middle of the busiest place. He may live in the Times Square when so many things are dancing and all kinds of hoopla activities are going on. That person remains absolutely calm and peaceful. Environment does not affect such a person. Just like the ocean is not affected by no matter how many rivers empty their waters into the ocean, it remains absorbs everything and remains calm. In the same way, no matter how many temptations come from so many different directions, a person whose mind is calm remains unaffected. He absorbs everything, remains unaffected. So many people can do and say so many things, but I remain unaffected by what happened. So many things are there tempting me. I'm not tempted by anything. I remain calm, just like the ocean. Ocean is an example of stability, calmness. Um, for example, Sri Ramakrishna went to somebody's house, and some satsang was going on, and they made a seat for him, asked him to sit down. He sat down there. Next to the seat, there was a newspaper lying there. And Sri Ramakrishna asked somebody, please remove the newspaper. Reading newspaper, it only contains worldly news. Not interested in that one. For a spiritual seeker, newspaper is of no interest. Asked him remove that one. I remained, and somebody said then the article criticizing you in the newspaper. He said, I don't have to know about it. People may criticize me or blame me. That does not affect me at all. That ability to remain calm in face of so many provocations and temptations, no matter what happens in the world, what other people say or do, I remain unaffected by all those things. I remain calm, keeping my mind fixed on the self within. That is the hallmark of a yogi. Such a yogi is being described in the verse number 70. We should all try to emulate that example. We should remain calm no matter what happens. Loss or gain, praise or blame, nothing should matter to us. I remain calm. Do what is needed. I take remedial measures, I take preventive measures. After that, I've done my best. I remain calm. No matter what happens, nobody can disturb me. Nobody can make me angry or sad. Nothing can make me sad or angry. I remain calm. That kind of inner stability should be our goal. Like it described, that is described in verse number 70. We will stop here. We have for about 5 minutes. If you want to ask any questions about today's slokas or anything else in second chapter, you can do so now. If you want to add any comments, you are welcome to add your comments.
Sarvadevananda ji also talks about two types. He says one is Karmaja and Mohaja.
Yeah.
Would that fall under Adi Bhautika itself, or is it
Adhyatmika. Karmaja means something karma I did that's causing suffering. And because my own karma, and moha means something because of ignorance. Moha means ignorance. Because of ignorance, I did something wrong that causes me suffering.
So that will be Adi Daivika, Maharaj? Mohaja? Mohaja is Adi Daivika then?
Adibhautika means coming from other, seeming to come from other sources, outside people, animals, and plants. Other people doing something wrong, that affects us. That's Adibhautika tapa.
So Mohaja is Adi Daivika then.
Adidhaivika means natural calamities. Hurricane, lightning, floods, etc. That nobody causes them, it happens in nature. People suffer as a result. So I did not cause hurricane, it affected me. So there is no remedy for that. Prayer is the remedy for that. Adibhautika, other people, other sources. Adhyatmika, I caused it. Adidhaivika, caused it by natural imbalances, calamities. So tapatraya is called tapatraya. 3 kinds of tapa. Tapa means heat or suffering.
Swamiji, I just wanted to talk about an analogy today. Like you in 3 of the slokas that came today, you said desires keep coming, though there's never end to a desire. We should turn our minds towards japam and meditation and all that. I just wanted to talk about an analogy in Devi Mahatyam also, Durga Shaptasati, chapter 8, where it's called Rakta Bija Vada, where the story is like, if you kill the demon or if you shoot the demon, every drop of blood, he'll create more Rakta Bijas, more of that. So even though we did Parayan for so many years, we didn't know what it was. But recently in Sri Sailam, there's a temple, Sri Sailam, it's a Mahakshetram. In that, the priest was saying that Rakta Bija symbolizes our desires. The more, if you fulfill your desire, more desires come. There's no end to that. And so by doing Durga Shaptasati or Devi Mahatima, whatever, Devi helps you to get over the process of having so many desires and helps you get towards you. So the same concept is given there. So when you were explaining this, I just thought of that analogy and I wanted to mention that, Swamiji. Thank you.
Raktabijaswara story comes in chapter 8. Our minds, our desires are like that. Raktabija, if 1 drop of blood fell from his body, 100 people will rise of the same time from that 1 drop. In the same way, if we fulfill 1 desire, 10 desires will come in its place. It will not go away.
Right. Recently, I understood that analogy. So,
very good.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Anything else?
Anybody else? Anita. Anita, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Namaste, Swamiji. I have a question about this dukkha. You said there are 3 types of dukkha. One is caused by outsiders, the other one is called by Adi Daivika, and one is caused by ourselves. So is this Adi Daivika and Adi Bhaudika from others is karma phala? Whatever we have done earlier, like if there is a calamity, only your house is destroyed, for example, is it because of your karmas, Adi Bhaudika and Adi Daivika affects only that particular person, is my question.
Even Adi Bhautika karma, Adi Bhautika tapa, coming from outside sources, though I did not do anything wrong, somebody did something wrong and it affected me, that also can be traced to Adhyatmika only.
Okay.
So, unless I had done something, that person would not have acted in such a way to cause me suffering. He's only an instrument, he's only the delivery instrument, he's not the cause. Cause is Adhyatmika originally. Even same Adi Devika also can be traced to Adhyatmika. Unless
Oh.
I have done something, I would not be in that place at that time when the
Correct.
hurricane came. So what took me there may prarabdha karma. So that way, everything can be traced to Adhyatmika only. But these are
Okay.
approximate visible causes.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you so much, Swamiji. Thank you. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Very good. Shall we say the closing prayer?
Yeah.
Okay. Our closing prayer, we can join. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sakhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from diseases and other problems. May all realize what is noble and auspicious. May no one be subject to misery. Om, peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all the beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. May there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Dayika Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all and stay well. And God willing, we will see you again next week. Until then, stay well.
Swamiji.